woman shook the 16-month-old baby with such force that her brain literally shredded to pieces inside her skull. The woman was sentenced to just 1 year of a work release program. In the quiet rural stretches of Indiana, the spring of 2009 arrived with a chilling silence that the community still hasn't quite shaken. This is the story of Alissa Beth Guernsey, a 16-month-old toddler whose life was less a childhood and more a relentless gauntlet of systematic brutality. In late 2008, following the tragic death of Alissa's father in a car accident, the toddler was placed in the care of a relative, Christy Salisbury. It was meant to be a sanctuary. Instead, it became a house of horrors. Over the next 4 months, the vibrant little girl began to physically wither. The medical reports and autopsy reports paint a portrait of violence that is difficult to stomach. Alissa didn't just have bumps and bruises, her tiny body was a map of escalating trauma. When she was finally brought to the hospital on the 28th of March 2009, she was already gone. Doctors found her covered in varying stages of bruising, purple, yellow and green welts that told of chronological story of repeated strikes. Her hair had been pulled out in patches, leaving her scalp raw and exposed. Most harrowing was the neurological evidence. Alissa had suffered a series of devastating head injuries. The official cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head, but the underlying reality was shaken baby syndrome and repeated impact. Her brain had bled, swelled and eventually shut down. Forensic evidence suggested she had been subjected to rotational acceleration. Her head whipped back and forth with such violence that the internal structures of her brain were torn apart. But the horror of this case isn't just found in the autopsy, it's found in the systemic failure that followed. Despite the visible decay of Alissa's health, the weight loss, the missing hair, the lethargy, she remained in that home. When the case finally reached the courtroom, the legal system delivered a second blow. Christy Salisbury was initially charged with Class B felony neglect, but through a controversial plea deal, she pleaded guilty to a Class D felony. She was sentenced to just 1 year in a work release program. 1 year for the life of a child who spent her final months in agony. Alissa Guernsey is buried in a small cemetery in LaGrange County. Her headstone is a reminder of a life cut short, but her legacy is a haunting question for the state of Indiana. How did they see the bruises and how did they let this happen?